Over the last few years, Sony has been experimenting with bringing their games to other platforms. Primarily, this has meant publishing originally PlayStation exclusive titles on PC. And this has been done very strategically, not really done at launch. Like when a game launches, it's usually like 1 or 2 years down the line because exclusivity is really important to PlayStation. It's the way that they get people to purchase the boxes. It is important for people to purchase the boxes. They like being in the lead right now over Xbox, but they've been putting stuff on PC, and apparently I missed this news when it came out, but apparently they're putting Helldivers 2 on Xbox, so that's a thing. And then of course before that they published LEGO Horizon Adventures on all platforms, including Switch. So Horizon, that is a legit first-party Sony IP, a very PlayStation thing, but this LEGO version, it's kind of the same thing, but really mostly not, so they were okay publishing that everywhere. So yeah, they've been really dipping their toe into this, getting a little bit more comfortable with putting games on the other actual, quote-unquote competing consoles. And then, speaking of Xbox, of course, they have also been, quote-unquote, experimenting with putting their games on other platforms. They've been doing it a little bit more, and it probably has something to do with desperation. They're not doing super great right now. The idea of exclusives is usually to get people to buy the box to play them on, but I guess have realized that they're fighting a losing battle, so they've been way more open about putting Xbox games on they've been putting them on Nintendo systems, a good number of Microsoft games on Switch, and then of course PC, and they're de-emphasizing the box. It's all about Game Pass. You know how it is, blah blah blah. It is funny though. I'll talk more about the big picture at the end, but I do want to mention right now, it is kind of funny that means that now Nintendo really is the only one of the big three that is still completely exclusive. Completely. Sure, they publish some mobile games, but that's it. That is absolutely it. They would not even think of putting anything on any rival console whatsoever. Do any of you listen to rival consoles? Really incredibly good music. I just wanted to point that out while I thought of it. But yeah, so anyway, Sony has been opening up more and more to the idea of sharing the love. And it seems that they are going to continue to do so. So we got a little bit of new insight into this whole entire thing in the form of a job listing. And it's always really funny when we get info that doesn't really feel like we should, it doesn't, I don't know. Should we be privy to this information? I guess it's one thing when someone's LinkedIn profile, their resume will mention something they probably shouldn't be mentioning, and in that case you kind of have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But when it's just a company just posting a job listing, obviously it's all a thing. So in this case, basically they are looking for a new an executive. It seems to be for a rather high-ranking position. So it is a little bit weird seeing just an open job list. I would think, for a higher position like that, you wouldn't just, put the call out there. You wouldn't, wait for people to come to you with applications. I would imagine that you would kind of keep it all within just, your rich, elite tech industry buddies, you send out a memo amongst the already rich people. You don't, put out a call to any old person. I don't really know how it works. Point is, though, they are looking for someone to help them put more of their games on other platforms. They're really just laying it all out here. The idea that they are going to pursue this even more going forward. It's all here. There's a little description here. Reporting to the Vice President, Commercial Management as Senior Director of Multiplatform and Account Management, you will play a critical leadership role in shaping and executing the global commercial strategy for PS Studios software titles across all digital platforms beyond PlayStation hardware, including Steam, Epic Games Store, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile. This role is accountable for optimizing title profitability, ensuring cross-functional alignment, and leading a high-performing team focused on multi-platform expansion, mid-range commercial planning, and platform partner management. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, like they are specifically name dropping the competition. You know, Xbox and Nintendo are on there. They're laying it all out. Like, yeah, we are looking for a person to help us put our games, more of our games, on Xbox and Nintendo and, you know, mobile and Epic and Steam and all that. Furthermore, leading a high-profile team, you know, like, I mean, obviously anything that goes on at a company is done by people at the company, you know, but like it's kind of cool to see, to just have like confirmation that like there is a team, there is a department at Sony that is now going to have like a boss leading them that is completely dedicated just to bringing PlayStation games to other platforms. This is a real push for them. So of course the question becomes like, okay, like what does this look like? What exactly does it look? Well, what other games can we expect to see? Like, are we going to get like Last of Us on Switch 2? Is that a thing? Is that possible? I would certainly take Demon's Souls on my Switch 2. I'd certainly like that. So like, yeah, you know, it gets the mind going like crazy. You can't help but think about all of your favorite PlayStation games and the idea of playing them on your Switch 2 or your Xbox if that's your thing. The thing is, though, we really do have to, unfortunately, be realistic here. We don't really have any reason to believe that they're just going to start porting everything to everything. PC, being a lot more open about PC, makes a lot of sense because the PC market is absolutely gargantuan. It's humongous. It's like bigger than every other platform ecosystem combined. And it's like kind of, I mean, like, sure, you get a lot, like Steam kind of has cornered the market like a little bit, but they themselves are not necessarily, like, it's a purchasing platform, but it's not necessarily a hardware platform. So like PC is not itself necessarily a competitor for Sony, whereas like Nintendo and Xbox, they basically are. So they have to be very careful about what they do there, because especially between Nintendo and PlayStation, their exclusives are really, really important. It's a whole thing. But PC, a little bit more decentralized, really, really huge market. So it does make sense for them to put like major games, even their biggest games, Spider-Man and whatnot, on there. But they're gonna have to be a lot more careful about their competition. You know, sometimes they say, oh, we're not really competitors. We're kind of like, we're aiming for a different space here. But no, they basically are. They basically are competition. So Sony does have to be really cognizant of what they're doing. Every little thing they do here, like this has to be very, very controlled, very purposeful, very strategic. Even Herman Hulst himself said recently, like they got to be really thoughtful about bringing their franchises to other platforms. So we definitely can't be too hasty. I really don't see like major PlayStation IPs necessarily coming to, you know, for instance, Switch 2. And in the case of Switch 2 especially, because there's all these rumors going around about how the PlayStation 6 is going to launch more or less alongside a new PlayStation Portable, which itself is basically going to be like a portable PS5, and, you know, with graphics topping out and mobile tech getting better, yada yada. I could easily see there being just like kind of an across the board, like cross play between, you know, they kind of tried to do the same thing with like the Vita and was it PS3 or PS4? I lose track, but like they're probably going to try to do that again, where like there's basically two versions of the same game, which would be really cool. I'm not going to lie, that'd be really great if you've got your big super powerful platform and then the handheld, but like people can buy the games and play them on either, like maybe even day one. That would be crazy. That's a whole conversation for another day, I guess. I've been meaning to talk about some like PlayStation Portable rumors and stuff. Maybe I'll do that later. I don't know. But that would be a really good reason for them not to put a lot of stuff on Switch 2, because being able to play their games portable, that's a big selling point. It really is. I mean, and obviously if they're releasing a game on PC, then I suppose you could say you could play those games on a portable PC, sure. But I could see them being more careful in the case of Nintendo, where like the Switch 2 is going to sell a lot of copies, and so that's a really, really big incentive there, play a game on there. They're going to want to get people who want to play a game day one on a handheld to play it on their handheld. So the way I see it here, and not to say that like I have a unique perspective or anything, I think just about anyone is probably going to see this the same way, but like what I see happening here is a lot more like what we have already seen. Let's look at the two examples of games going to rival console platforms again from earlier. Helldivers 2 is going to Xbox. Okay, well that's a multiplayer game. That is way more the kind of game that you want to put on other platforms, because a multiplayer game, it lives and dies on its user base. Just the number of people playing it, you know, the bigger it is, the more it markets itself, the more revenue it's gonna pull in. So it only benefits Sony to put a multiplayer game like Helldivers 2 on as many platforms as possible. And then in the case of Lego Horizon Adventures, that is a game that is based on a Sony property, but is not itself an actual like mainline title that plays like its respective series. It's more something to just kind of expose other people, expose other audiences to the idea of the property, so that in theory they may become interested in going and checking it out on its, you know, the actual games on the actual PlayStation. So I could see more stuff like that. We're gonna be looking at more multiplayer games, and then like maybe smaller, more casual titles that kind of get the word out about a certain series, but like not necessarily the actual games themselves. And if that is the case, then yeah, it is a little bit of a shame. It does mean we're probably not going to get just like straight up single player PlayStation exclusives on other platforms. You know, Astrobot is probably not ever going to be playable on anything but a PlayStation, unfortunately. We got to keep our expectations in check. However, I do still think this is very interesting, and I think you never know. They could surprise us. All of this is experimental. You know, I feel like even the first time they put a PlayStation game on PC, that may have been seen as a big experiment for them. I don't know, maybe they were like totally gung-ho about doing it and they were sure that it was right, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were just like, all right, we're gonna kind of see what happens. We're gonna see if this helps in the long run, and obviously they're finding that it does help in the long run. So yeah, maybe they will surprise us. Maybe they will just kind of throw us a bone sometimes. Maybe when a game is old enough, you know, because that's the thing. A game is exclusive on PlayStation, and then after the fact, they'll put it on PC. Maybe when a game is old enough, maybe when like the original Last of Us is old enough, they'll consider putting it on rival platforms, just because you know, so much time has gone by, so many other games have come out that it becomes worth it to put like a classic of one of their exclusive IPs on the other systems. It's completely possible. For now, I'm not counting on it, but yeah, it's interesting to see that they're really going forward with this. They're really going to be doing this a lot more. And yeah, to touch briefly on the bigger picture, I know a lot of people are very, very against the idea of Nintendo putting their games on other platforms, just as Nintendo themselves are. I have pretty much always been of the mindset that it wouldn't hurt to try at least a little. Kind of like how PlayStation is doing it, like dipping your toe in the water. I'm just so curious to know how well a Nintendo game would sell on PC. And that's the thing. That doesn't mean going completely multi-platform, because again, now Nintendo, more than ever and more than anyone else, it's the exclusives. That's what sells the systems. We definitely saw that with the Switch generation, with games selling 30 million copies. Like, obviously, it's really, really important, and that helped drive sales of the system itself. You put too many of your games on other platforms, and you're gonna earn less through hardware. Nintendo loves earning through hardware. I feel like if a game is old enough, or if it's like kind of a strategic title, there's really no harm in just trying. In just, even if it is just PC, even if you do want to stay away from the rival consoles, which you shouldn't, because it's such good music. It's electronic. It's just like, I don't know. It's just got this vibe to it. It's so good. But you know, the rival video game consoles, like, sure, maybe they want to stay away from there, but at least PC, it just couldn't hurt to try. You don't need to be so basically religiously attached to this idea that, like, no, not even once, not ever, not any game at all. I don't know. It feels a little bit too far to me. I don't think it would hurt to just try sometimes. So I think PlayStation's doing a good thing here. I know I talk a lot of smack about Sony. I think they're doing a lot of not good things, but I think this right here is a good thing. I think that this is very wise. I think that this is only going to open up a lot more revenue for them. And of course, that whole idea of exposing a lot of other players on other platforms to PlayStation IPs, how much is that actually going to translate into increased sales of PlayStation hardware? I don't know, but at least theoretically, it is possible. So there you go. Good job, Sony. You're doing a good thing here. How about Shadow of the Colossus? That's an old game by now. That's such an old game. Can we get Shadow of the Colossus on Switch 2? That'd be great.